Took my family away from my Carolina home. Had dreams about the West and started to roam. 6 long months on a dust-covered trail. They say heaven's at the end, but so far it's been hell. And there's fire on the mountain, lightning in the air, gold in them hills, and it's waiting for me there. We were digging and shifting 5 to 5, selling everything we found just to stay alive. Gold flowed free like the whiskey in the bars. Sinning was the big thing, Lord, and Satan was a star. And there's fire on the mountain, lightning in the air, gold in them hills, and it's waiting for me there. Dance hall girls were the evening treat. Empty cartridges and blood lined the streets. Men were shot down for the sake of having fun, or just to hear the noise of their 44 guns. And there's fire on the mountain, lightning in the air, gold in them hills, and it's waiting for me there. Now my widow, she weeps by my grave. Tears flow free for her man she couldn't save. Shot down in cold blood by a gun that carried fame, all for the useless and no good, worthless claim. And there's fire on the mountain, lightning in the air, gold in them hills, and it's waiting for me there. And there's fire on the mountain, lightning in the air, gold in them hills, and it's waiting for me there. Waiting for me there.
Three, two, one. Hey, YouTubers and friends, how are all of you doing tonight? I sure hope you're staying cool if you're in the hot zone like we are here in the Midwest. Well, tonight, tonight I have a couple of gentlemen joining me from back home in Washington State. Are they prospectors? No, they're not prospectors. They're not hounders. They're not metal detectorists. Their treasure is a whole lot different, but as good. I like spelunking and I've done a little mine exploring. A little, but these guys, ghost towns and mines of Washington, and it's just right up our alley, I think. And we've had Frank and his wife on from exploring abandoned mines. They're into history, and if they're exploring mines and ghost towns, most of those ghost towns are boom towns, and you know what that means. So I'm really looking forward to this show. I thank all of you for joining us. Welcome, Zachary. I saw you sneak in the door. Welcome. All of you who come over from uh, ghost towns and mines of Washington's community, come on in. Our community don't bite. They're a pretty friendly group of people. So Burgers, welcome. Another new one. Welcome, and I hope you return. But I'm gonna stop this jibber jabbering, jacking my jaw, and get us through the intro and on to the show. So, those who know, I'll be right back. We'll be right back.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to an episode of Tuesday Night Hangout Live. It's Tuesday night, Hangout Live. It's Tuesday night, Hangout Live. It's Tuesday night, Hangout Live. With your host, Ed Marvin. Tuesday Night Hangout Live is a Flash in Your Pan production.
Welcome, you guys. Welcome to another Tuesday Night Hangout Live. Hello?
Hello.
How are you two doing tonight?
Good. Thanks for
Real good.
thanks for having us on it. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Hobo Rob, how you doing? Inside Ben, good to see you, Matt. Matt, I think it's Matt. All these handles and real names. Oh, hope you're doing good, all of you. Um, Again, welcome to Tuesday Night Hangout Live. Forrest, Tim, glad to have you with us. Um, so, how'd you get into exploring mines and getting into exploring ghost towns and stuff?
Well, about, I want to say it was probably around 2009-ish. I think I was, I remember it was a summertime and I was just kind of looking for some interesting stuff to do. And I think I was just browsing the internet and I came across an interesting hike to an old coal mine ghost town out here in Pierce County where we live. And one Saturday, I think it was, we just decided to go out and check it out. And I just became hooked. I kind of looked up the history ahead of time, went out, and we, found some of the, the foundations and things that were there. And it was just, I don't know, mesmerizing for me. And so one just led to the next, And before I know it, I was just off on this adventure. And then about a year later, I thought, well, it'd be kind of cool to put this out on Facebook and just start sharing this stuff. So I decided to start the Facebook page, Ghost Towns of Washington, in 2010. And we just started sharing pictures from our different trips and places we go and, kind of posted sporadically here and there, as we did these different adventures. So that's just kind of where it all began. And it just continued to lead to the next thing, to the next. And continues
YouTube
today.
and TikTok and
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
pretty much all over. Can they find you on Instagram and
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Instagram,
Twitter?
Facebook.
I mean X.
Not X, no, not on X yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
So are you
Not sure about that.
Are you over on Rumble also?
No, we're not on Rumble. Obviously, we have some work to do, it sounds like.
Well, there's some places like Library and Rumble, BitChute. You could sync your YouTube channel to it, and there's a couple you earn cryptocurrency on.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So everything you do on your YouTube channel will automatically sync with those other ones. And it isn't too hard setup. Yeah, you have to do a little channel art and stuff like that. But for content, it's pretty much echoes automatically everything you upload to your YouTube channel. Can you, Bill? I probably could, but I don't know if I will, especially for you. Nah, just kidding, Bill. Ohio Relic Hunter, can you ask them if they've explored Lester, Washington?
Yeah.
If so, elaborate a bit.
So I wish I had my notes in front of me. Lester, I want to say, was probably around maybe 2014 or 15, somewhere in there, I'm guessing. Lester was a railroad stop, kind of just over the Snoqualmie Pass, going kind of to the east side of the state, near the watershed there, the Cedar River watershed. And the town, I think the town was around 1,000 people at its peak. There was a roundabout there, railroad turntable roundabout, a lot of infrastructure. I don't remember what year exactly it ceased. There's so many places I go and do, I can't possibly remember all of that. But When we went there, it was, you had to hike in. It was a gated area. It kind of bordered a restricted zone, which is the watershed. So you had to cross the Burlington Northern railroad tracks that are still active, and you can kind of get to some old structures that were still there. There was like the guardhouse, and a few other, a shed, and some other things that were still there. I think it was approximately maybe 4 years ago, maybe longer. They demolished all of the structures that were there.
Oh, man.
Partly, I think, with the railroad easement, they didn't want people really in that area. So it was pretty popular as the internet took off. These places get on all the different trail websites, so that they had a lot of activity there. So I think they were trying to just deter people from wanting to go there by not having anything to see any longer.
Right.
So they took those structures down. There really isn't anything much there today other than foundations. For a while, and I'm still not really clear on this because I haven't dug into it, but for a while they restricted it, to my understanding, where you couldn't even go in. They basically had no trespassing under penalty of citation, signage. And then I read recently from some followers that you could go in there again. So I'm not really 100% sure on that. But even if you can, there's not much left to see. It's all pretty much gone. So we were at least fortunate enough to get there before that all happened. So,
hey, I have a celebrity in my house tonight, Chris Undertaken. Good to see you, Chris. Hope I did notice you're already getting on that Australian gold. I'm glad you're enjoying Down Under. I bet you don't miss the Mojave Desert. Sorry, guys. I see a friend of our channel's in the chat room.
Nice.
Well, I see a lot of friends of the channel, personal, that I've got to meet. I'm sure that's happened to you. Have you yet get notice out and about someone saying, I know you. You guys are gold ghost towns and mines of Washington.
Not without some prompting from us, I guess. So yeah, I mean, we talk to people on the trails and places we go a lot, and if we tell them who we are, then a lot of people are like, oh, it clicks immediately, they know who we are. We have logos now that we wear, so sometimes people notice that. I joked with a buddy of ours, Drew, not long ago. We were out hiking. I said, the first time I'm on a trail and someone comes up and goes, hey, you're that guy. I said, that'll be the wow moment for me if that ever happens, right?
Oh yeah.
Our YouTube channel, I mean, we just kind of started playing around with YouTube about 9 months ago ish. It'd be almost, I think.
Welcome to the YouTube community.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're new to YouTube doing that. I mean, you got to kind of find your way on that whole deal, and we're still figuring it out, but we're going to try to continue to improve our content and put more stuff out there for people. So yeah, hopefully one day that'll happen, but doesn't happen too much yet.
Oh, well, there's a few mine exploration channels that are doing very, very well.
Yes, there are.
I like what you guys put together. Makes me rather homesick a lot of times, and I try and figure out maybe what area.
As part of the
I
mystique.
was a lot further north of you guys, so most of my exploring was Whatcom, Skagit, Snohomish, into the Okanagan.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we just spent a week over, or a week,
3 days.
Yeah, 3 days, I guess it was.
3 days over in the Okanagan.
Yeah, last week we were over there. We go over there a couple times a year usually and explore. There's a lot of really great sites and history over there. It's one of our favorite places to go.
I was in Nighthawk one time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we were just there.
I ran across the owner of the property the Ruby Mine's on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was early mid 90s.
Okay.
And I'm like, hey, mind if uh, I love the mining history of the area and I'm a prospector. Would you mind if I go check out the mine and some of the buildings and stuff? And he's like, oh no, go up there, be careful, rattlesnakes, blah, 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 you know. Of course, it's the dry side, plenty of rattlesnakes, unlike our side, the wet side. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
In fact, you bring up Ruby, that we were, like I said, we were just over. I've been there like probably I think 4 times to that site. And of all the places in Okanagan, is the only place I've ever encountered rattlesnakes so far, is at that site. It's really interesting that, I mean, obviously they're everywhere else, but that's
right,
the only place
right.
I've actually seen them. So
Yeah, I tortured my children. I drive them all over the West Coast and stuff to mining claims and, and wherever. Took them to Roslyn a couple of times and say, you
sure.
know,
Oh yeah.
gold ain't the only mining kids, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Roslyn's really known for coal
Yeah.
Oh
and
yeah.
big coal mine, big disaster. I like the memorial they have there.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a pretty cool area. That whole area, Ronald, Roslyn, there's a lot of history over there for sure.
And same with like up in the Okanagan more, like we were talking about, Nighthawk has a rich history all
It does.
around Palmer Lake and
Yes.
oh, you know, shoot, Oroville, that
Yeah.
area,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm
Tucson.
trying to remember all these names of areas, and Loomis has
Oh
this
Loomis.
yeah.
Yeah.
nice,
Loomis is awesome.
and that's right, what, just south a little of Nighthawk. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Shout
bringing
out
it
to
back to me.
Concanoli. Don't forget
Oh,
Concanoli. That's
They're
another.
yeah.
huge. Guacamole.
Silvertown. A lot of
Oh yeah.
silver mining up there, right? I just put out a short last month on that area. Um, but then, like, have you been able to get into any of the patented areas or private properties around Liberty and Blewett Pass?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a story there if you want a story, but
Yeah, stories are good. Want to hear a story, everyone? Give me a
so
thumbs up if you do. Graveyard Prospecting says, I love ghost towns. So do I. So do I. So we get best of both worlds with these guys. We get ghost towns and mines.
Oh yeah.
What's the freakiest thing these guys have seen out there?
Ooh.
Run into Squatch while you've been out?
no,
No
not
Sasquatch
no,
encounters.
nothing I can really.
Maybe some real hairy, dirty hippies, but not Squatches, right?
No.
No. No, the I don't know. I think probably the scariest thing that we've encountered so far is probably either mountain lion tracks or when we have little rats or squirrels jumping out of the mines at us. You know, nothing too crazy these days, thankfully.
Nothing too crazy. Zachary, Black Diamond, Roslyn, laughing. I may be biased working for the Black Diamond Museum. I'm gonna have to research Black Diamond now.
Yeah,
Oh,
Black
Black
Diamond's
Diamond's
a
awesome.
very historic area, coal mine area. Lots of tons of history there. It's a great place. That's some of our earliest exploring
Yep.
grounds when we first got going.
Yep.
A lot of stuff out there and a lot of really cool places to visit.
Yeah. One of the coolest places that we at least in my opinion, is a town out in the Black Diamond area called Franklin. That has a graded over air shaft, I believe it was. Was that air?
I'm not 100% sure I don't believe it was. I think they were driving it for some other reason, but
Gotcha.
yeah.
But yeah, there's a huge shaft that drops hundreds of feet down. And I mean, the thing's probably 10 feet by 10 feet wide. It's awesome. Bunch of coal carts out there, lots of foundations. It's killer area.
So circling back there, Ed,
Yes.
so you want the patented claim prospector story, or
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
We can go for that one.
Be quiet, Ed. Let them talk.
No, you're all good. I have no. I'm a good talker, so. So we were in the Blewett. We were talking about the Blewett area, right? So just going north of Liberty there on 97, and Blewett. I mean, obviously a huge mining district, very historic. There was a town there, a mill. The mill remains are still there, the remnants of the mill. There's some stone foundation walls, a little bit of the structure. So behind that is all mostly patented claims going up this gulch. And there's a Forest Service road that kind of cuts through these claims. And there's mixed opinions and whatnot as far as this road being publicly accessible. It's gated, and it's got all these no trespassing signs and all this other scary language posted on it. And so, we knew about Blewett. We wanted to explore the area. So and some of the other groups that we have explored with in the past, like Northwest Underground Explorations, had done this area quite extensively. So we really wanted to get up and check this area out. So the summer before we headed over there, this was, I'm guessing, around 2012 or 13, I called the Forest Service, the Wenatchee Forest Service, and just said, hey, is this road a Forest Service road? Because I know it's gated, it's posted. And they said, yes, it's absolutely a Forest Service road. It's a public easement, it's not private. And I'm like, okay. Because I said, hey, this, I gave them kind of the business about the signage, and they're like, well, and then the interesting thing, I should have known when they asked me this question that there's something amiss, but they said, and they don't know who I am, where I'm coming from, nothing. I'm just asking some questions. And they said, when are you thinking of going there? And I was like, well, that's a weird question, And I said, well, we're going to be over there in the area this weekend. And they didn't really say much else. So we went over, and there was about 4 of us, and we started up this Forest Service road around this gate that was clearly marked, right? That, somebody put signage on saying you can't be behind this gate. And we got maybe, I'm guessing, 100 yards up to the first claim on the left. And this person comes over the hillside, and I don't remember exactly what they said to us, but they said something to the effect of, you can't be here. What are you doing here? Something or another. And I had done my homework ahead of time because I knew who the claim holder was. I knew the person's name. I never met them, but I knew who they were because I talked to some people that knew them. And the next thing I looked, and this guy's got a 357 in his hand, right? And he's holding it out, and I'm looking at this guy going, okay, well, how's this? What's going on here? And he kind of comes down, and and basically, I for whatever reason, I made up my mind that day that we're going up this road, and that's the end of it, right?
Right.
And so he came down and he started giving us the business about it, and I started calling him by his first name, right? And I don't think he picked up on like, how do you know me or anything. And long story short, we were able to diffuse the situation. It took a minute or 6 to get there. But he calmed down and kind of figured out that we had some similar interests, and we also knew some similar people. In fact, we knew the same people. And so he, changed his tune a bit and actually let us go in one of his mines on his property. So anyway, it was just one of those kind of, interesting moments. So that's one story that kind of sticks in my mind, where the claim holder and the explorer kind of worlds collide, if you will.
Right. No, I don't want to claim jump. I'm not here to claim jump. I just want to explore.
Well, I think that's one of the hard things is and you obviously know your mining claims and legalities. You know, a lot of people I think are mistaken that a federal mining claim means you can't be on the land, which is 100%
A
false.
lot of people make that mistake.
Yeah.
Patented, yes, that's
Yes.
becomes private property when it
Exactly.
becomes accepted as patented. It's same
Correct.
as private property. You could build a house on it, fence it
Mhm.
in, no
Yeah.
trespassing up the wazoo, but a federal mining claim, it's only you only have rights to the minerals below the surface.
Exactly.
And
Mhm.
other than that, you can't stop people from hiking, fishing, camping, hunting, whatever. It's their land too.
Exactly.
But
No, we've had a lot of good fortune with some of the connections and networking we've been able to do over the years, where we've been able to get on a lot of patented claims and private property. We've had people reach out to us and say, "Hey, I have this on my property. If you're ever in the area, let me know, and I'd be glad to, let you check it out." And so, that's kind of rare, So we're really that we kind of changed our tune over the years, where we used to post a lot of information about the places we visit, like mines. Um,
mm-hmm,
and, you know, these sites become nuisance sites. People start with the age of the internet and instant information. This stuff spreads like wildfire. It's not that we're
Mhm.
secretive or we don't ever want to let people enjoy or experience anything we do. But we've had sites that we've been to many times over the years that have been, the Forest Service has come in and they gated the mines just because of the higher than normal traffic that's
right.
going to them. So we've kind of taken a different approach where we just don't say a lot about the name of the mine or where we're at. I mean, people can see pictures, and if they're familiar, they know it. But we just don't put that information out there to try to help curve some of that activity if we can. But we really want to share the history still, and those people that can't go to these places, we want them to be able to see it. So that's why we share it.
Right.
There's a mixed bag there of opinion on that, but that's just kind of how we are and what we do.
Well, I
Um,
can understand, because some people, their intentions aren't good.
Mhm.
sure.
Then they vandalize and
Oh yeah.
trash the place, and then they wreck it for all of us.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, exactly. And and places get looted, and it's not just in Washington. It's, there's mines in the Southwest that have, they're way bigger, have way cooler, artifacts still in place, and that stuff just
mm,
disappears. And, it's unfortunate, right? So,
yeah, that's one bad thing about the west side of the Cascades. um, it's really wet, so things don't stick around as long
they
as they
don't.
would in more arid parts of the country.
Yep.
Mhm.
Which is a perfect segue into like kind of how we evolved into mines, because originally we were, the name was Ghost Towns of Washington for many years, and it wasn't until this year that we added the and mines of Washington, even though we'd been doing mines for a number of years.
Mhm.
And just like you mentioned, the climate over here and just that things aren't going to hold up if they're not maintained, especially in the western part of the state.
Mhm.
There isn't a lot to see of ghost towns. A lot of people hear about a ghost town and they think of the Scooby Doo cartoon, right? Where you see all these buildings on both sides of the old road, and there's all the stuff. And there's just not that kind of a ghost town, even anywhere in the state, hardly. Eastern Washington a little bit, but in Western Washington it's mostly foundations. So as we kind of ran our course through a lot of these ghost towns over here, and even though we were going into Eastern Washington,
Right.
um, we kind of naturally just gravitated towards mines because of the boom towns and some of the other places associated with mining. We thought, well, hey, let's start checking out some of these mines, and that just took on a whole nother life of its own as well. So
Well,
Mhm.
ghost towns is kind of synonymous with mines to begin with.
sure,
Oh yeah.
absolutely.
Because with the expansion of the West, there's, well, I guess you could get into the trapping industry too, because Vancouver started off as a Hudson Bay Company town with Fort Vancouver, and then eventually mining, Nighthawk, Loomis, shoot, even little Hamilton in Skagit Valley started off as a coal mining town or coke mining town, and shoot, concrete, limestone, it's all mining related to a degree. Mining or logging, logging,
Yeah.
some type of um, commodity, really, brought the
Yeah.
people in. They made towns, boomed, busted, moved on. Some
Mhm.
stayed around, like, what made San Francisco the California Gold Rush, right? Seattle boomed during the Klondike and the Gnome Rush. Um, any Tommyknocker stories? David Villa asked Ghost Towns and Mines. Any Tommyknocker stories?
I mean, obviously, anytime you go underground, I mean, I've done, like I said, I've done about 200 mines in the state, roughly, and that's from all the way to almost the Idaho border, to Eastern Washington, to the Canadian border, and to the Oregon border. And every mine's a little different. I mean, in terms of the feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eastern Washington mines are very different than the West. The geology is different. And so when you go into these mines, I mean, I think sometimes like I've like been exploring where other people are with me, but I'm in a part of the mine by myself. And a couple times, not a lot, I remember as I'm going down a tunnel, I turn around and look behind me for whatever reason. And I think, why am I even doing that? I'm like,
Mhm.
if there was something there, I probably really don't want to know, right? But nothing really that stands out that's bizarre. I think we were at a mine over in the Miller River district, which is off US 2, kind of outside the Gold Bar and the Index area, um, several years back, and we did this explore. And the weirdest thing that I've ever experienced, and my digital camera failed, and one of the guys that I was with Northwest Underground, his watch quit working, and that was
Mm.
probably the weirdest thing I've ever experienced, as far as exploring. So
Well, heavy mineralized. Maybe there was a lot
yeah,
of hematite or magnetite in that particular mine, and that played a little weird with your stuff. A personal friend of mine and YouTuber and fellow Washingtonian. Uh, he's a native Skagitonian. Ottis Ferris lives closer to you guys now, but he's wondering, have you guys been to the Chickasaw area, Labatt or Molson?
yeah,
Out in
oh yeah,
the,
oh yeah,
that's, if I recollect right, that's quite a bit more east of
it
like
is,
Nighthawk and Loomis.
it
Uh,
is.
It is.
Yeah, Molson's tucked right up. I think it's like 3 miles from the Canadian border or something around that
Mhm.
range.
um,
That's a great area. I think I've been to Molson 4 times, roughly. We were there last summer.
Mhm.
Cheesaw is a great area. Just some of the better preserved in terms of if you want to get a flavor for what that era was like. Molson's got a great. It's a ghost town, but it's a museum. It's kind of a created ghost town, if you will. They moved a lot of the old buildings into an area and
mhm.
artifacts, and kind of made a little living history museum there. And the town itself of Molson is, I mean, there's obviously residents, but there's some cool buildings there as well that are, no longer in use, the school and whatnot. But it's
Mhm.
awesome.
There you go, Otis. Lots of history and home to Mark Ski Hill. He's a real big snowboarder too, that Otis. Let's see. Now we've touched base on permissions and stuff like that, and I know a lot of the weller known mines and stuff are patented pretty much. The ones that are really documented and well known, it just makes sense to me. But now, have you found the ones like on BLM land and that and National Forest Service land? Are they tend to be more vandalized or treasure picked, looted, so to speak?
I think it really depends on the mine. So some of the mines, obviously, you're familiar with the western side of Washington State. It's pretty rugged terrain. So a lot of these mines that are fairly remote, you can take trails a certain distance to get positioned, and then from as far in as you can get, you're doing a brush bash and climbing for a certain amount of distance depending on the mine. So the more remote and difficult the mine is, the better the artifacts, the better the mine is left in
True.
its original
It'd be
state.
the same way with us for gold too. The harder it is to get to, the better the gold or whatever spoils we're looking for in a particular area.
Sure.
Now, a lot of people, I'm sure, get into what what do you do to keep yourself safe? Because we all know the saying, right? Stay alive, stay out,
Yeah.
stay alive.
Yep.
What precautions do you take to keep you too safe when in a mine?
Cross your fingers
Right.
first.
Luck.
No, I mean, I think so. That's a great question. And it's probably one of the most asked questions we get on any of our social media platforms. The first is you have to know your limitations and what you're comfortable with. That's first and foremost. I mean, if you've never done this and you're not really sure about it, I mean, that should be a red flag because you got to have a certain amount of, you don't want to panic or, freak
Panic
out when you're doing
kills.
this.
Panic
And
kills.
Oh
so
yeah.
what the first thing that we do is, a lot of these mines, we obviously do the research. So if we can obtain through the DNR records and any other historical records, the layout of the mine, so we can basically get a map. So we just understand what we're looking at as far as how the tunnel systems work. Are there any winzes in these mines that we should be aware of? So we just know ahead of time. A lot of the mines on the west side are flooded up to a foot to 4 feet of water, depending
Right.
on the mine. Not all the way through necessarily, but a portion of them. So if you don't know if there's a winds and you're in a mine you've never been in and it's flooded, you can easily step and drop, into that. Luckily, flooded is better than dry, but still,
Definitely. A
you know,
lot easier to start treading water
sure,
than grab for the edges of a winds if you fall in.
Yeah.
exactly.
Do
So
you use a cane or a hiking stick as a probe when walking in?
I I have
Mm-hmm.
I've done that before. If especially if it's unexplored territory that we have no knowledge of and we just don't have any recon on the site. Sure, absolutely. The other thing, I mean, we obviously, use our, head protection, I mean,
Right.
a lot of these mines, they change height as you go through and you can find quickly you'll hit your head. And the first time you do that, hopefully that'll be the last time if you,
Yeah.
know that you should probably have one of these. Anything, could drop off if small rocks and things, sometimes fall. probably the biggest thing that people ask about is air quality of mines. That's a big question we get asked all the time. How do we know what the air quality is? In most of the metal lode mines around here, gases are not an issue. Like I said, I've done about 200 mines, and we use a O2 gas sensor that we carry with us. So you just kind of clip it on, and it's a audible, alarming, and verbal. Never had any issues with gas in any mines around here. The only thing we encounter occasionally, and it's pretty rare, but it can happen, is oxygen deficiency. We'll go from a 20% reading, and sometimes I've seen it as low as getting into the 16, 15% in certain parts of mines. So you just have to be aware that, that can be obviously a concern. Oxygen deficiency is something you're not going to know until you start breathing heavy and you start getting lightheaded. So it's good to have, a sensor just to make sure you understand that, what's going on in there.
Okay, my friend David Villa was wondering if you ever get any bad dreams after visiting these mines.
Yeah, that's a good, interesting question. I can't say that I have. No, I wish I had a more exciting answer for that, but no, nothing.
I mean, haven't had any bad dreams, but we recently did hear a story from a guy that also goes out and explores these mines, and I guess he was out exploring a mine, and he had a portion of it collapse on him, and it took him 12 hours to dig himself out of it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So I mean, not necessarily a bad dream, but definitely something that I wouldn't ever want to even dream about that.
Yeah, I think what he's Forrest is touching on there is I probably had more at times reflection, looking back, saying,
yes,
would I do that again? Like some of these mines that I've gone into, the portals are in really poor condition, and you have to, you barely can squeeze in. I mean, it's just barely big enough for a person.
Right.
And then later on, I think to myself, man, would I do that again? Because what if, I've had those kind of, looking back thoughts, but nothing really in terms of dreams.
And I could imagine it being more dangerous on the wet side compared to Eastern Washington because of the moisture and stuff. Your timbers in the mine get rotted faster.
Yeah.
Evergreen prospectors. It's good to see all our Washington family in the house tonight. All our family. Our Aussies, our Washingtonians, our Oregonians. Now, do you two ever plan on venturing out of state or collaborating more with other exploration channels?
Yeah, that's another good question. You kind of think about looking into the future and say, well, at some point, you hit all the biggies around here, or as many as you can. And if you're doing content creating like what we're doing, you're going to run out eventually of content, or at least content that keeps people's attention. A lot of these smaller mines just aren't as interesting, especially if you're trying to make a YouTube video or whatnot. So the natural thought process I had is Oregon, right, is something I thought about, down the road. Collaborating with other, explorers is obviously always on the table. Something we've talked to some people about, we just haven't, connected. But yeah, for sure, that's something we definitely would consider.
Excellent. Oh, wow. I have a couple of hard rock miners in my live chat right now. They're opal miners from Lightning Ridge, Australia. Hey, Nikki. Hope you and your husband are doing well. Thanks for dropping in.
Super cool.
Wonder if she's gonna. I'll ask her. Sorry, guys.
Oh, you're good.
Are you two gonna get out of the mine now since it's wintertime in Australia and get some of that gold? Ed's curious mind wants to know. I find your channel to be quite informative. You cover a wide range of intriguing topics within the mining industry. Hey, Cushy, I think you're directing that to me. Thank you. Um, but you should check out these guys if you like exploring ghost towns and mines. I like their stuff. Have you got to the point where you had to pack in kayaks or anything to venture into some of those flooded mines?
No, not yet. I mean, luckily, chest waders gets the job done for the majority. I mean, it gets up to you're at the top end of it, but we haven't gotten that far. We know people that have taken inflatable rafts because the water was pretty deep, and then opened up some mines that were pretty sealed up and hadn't been drained, and they used a raft to check out the mine. So we haven't done it, but we know people who have, or a person who has. Shout out to
Okay,
Drew.
what's in your kit always when you venture out?
Flashlights.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some obviously fundamentals that's no different than if you're going on any other kind of off trail or remote wilderness exploration, right? So for mines, obviously, we have multiple sources of light. You know, you don't want to go in with one source of light in case something fails. General rule, obviously have two or three sources of light. Usually we bring water, water pumps, right? As far as, to be able to pump drinking water from, streams and whatnot. Um, First aid kits and whatnot, as far as, for survival, your basic survival kits, things of that nature. I think one thing people don't think about when they're exploring mines is it can be 85 degrees out in the summer and you're dying on the trail and you get to the mine and it can be, a 60, 55 degrees in a mine.
Right.
So you got to think about that because, one of the only mine exploring deaths I've ever heard of in Washington, and I don't know about the rest of the country. I try to keep tabs and Google stuff just to, statistically. But there was a person who went into a mine that they had to drop down into a shaft that wasn't terribly deep to access the haulage tunnel. And for whatever reason, they couldn't get back up out of the mine. And they actually ended up dying of hypothermia in the summertime because of the temperature in the mine. So when you're going out to these places, in our packs or on a person before you go in, you need to have some sort of a jacket or something at least to, keep you warm just in case. And that's an important one as well.
Do you take repelling gear with you?
We haven't done a lot of rappelling. There's a individual we explore with on a regular basis who's a very proficient rappeller who wants to get us out this year and do some rappelling and do some training. So that's something that we're looking at doing this year for the first time. So that could be a game changer in terms of some of our explorations for sure.
Cool. If any of you have a question out there, you know how it is. Don't hesitate to ask away. Now, so far, how has this content creation journey treated you two? Are you glad you did it? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think, starting off with Facebook, it was pretty benign and just a simple, deal with no expectation, right? Not, I mean, it's just, hey, we're just sharing our stuff.
right?
We're not trying to get anywhere with this other than just, letting people know there's cool places out there, there's cool history around here, to explore. as we kind of developed it and we got more followers, and then we entered the YouTube realm. I think that's one thing you just got to really understand. You got to temper your expectations, right? If you're doing it to try to, like you mentioned at the very beginning, if you're doing it to get instant fame and people to notoriety and some sort of huge payout, you're doing it probably for the wrong reason, right?
True.
That's the thing I think most people get frustrated with, and they just quit doing it because
Yeah,
they just
they're
don't see
expecting
results.
growth too fast, be
Yeah,
famous. Right.
and I look at it like we're doing it just to share what we do. If people like it, great. If it's not for them, that's okay too. And it's a record of our exploration, so we can look back someday and see what we did. So I mean, there's all kinds of rewarding benefits just for us doing it for the pure enjoyment of doing it, and bringing people along. That's an added benefit. That's great. But it's not the whole reason we do it, right? So
Right. I have a question from Evergreen Prospectors. He's another Washingtonian, of course, with a name like Evergreen Prospectors. Duh. But we were actually talking about that pre-show, Evergreen. He's asked, do you ever go up into the McCoy Creek area?
yeah, have been up there before. So McCoy Creek, Camp Creek area. I had a friend I worked with about 10, 8, 9 years ago, something like that. They had a placer claim on McCoy. And so I went up a few times with him, and we did a little placer mining. I mean, he was a pretty serious business guy doing this, and I kind of played around a little bit, but I explored the area. So there's a lot of history in the McCoy Creek area. You can find some relics out there and some cool mining history items that are still out there, but very familiar with the area for sure.
Um, so I'm sure you explored the Mount Baker district, Slate Creek district,
Yep.
Nighthawk, we know, all over the Okanagan, probably Ferry, up in the Sullivan Creek area.
Yeah,
Boy,
some of the more familiar ones, locally that are not known for gold, but copper and whatnot. You have the
Southwest, yeah.
index mining district, Miller
Okay,
River.
yeah.
You
Not
know,
much left of Galena, is there?
no,
No.
no, nothing's really left.
And
Yeah,
I did enjoy your video I watched on Monte Cristo.
Mm-hmm.
I heard it's changed so much in the last 20 some odd years.
yeah, it has.
Oh yeah.
Constantly changing. There's not a whole lot left, obviously, out there. There's the railroad turntable, which is probably
Still
one of the
working.
still working.
Mm-hmm.
There's the mill foundations, which when they did remediation around, see, when did they do that? Like
20.
17, 18, somewhere
Yeah.
in there. They, in my opinion, a lot of people were worried when they remediated Monte Cristo that they were going to destroy a lot of the history, or really kind of mess the site up.
Mm-hmm.
And from my perspective, they actually improved it because they uncovered a lot of artifacts. They made the mill site more visible in terms of how it looked. You could make out the foundations and the different tiers of the gravity mill. So I think they did some things that hopefully will give it some longevity in terms of where it was headed before. So
Cool. It's nice when they do that instead of just bulldoze everything down, because, geez, across the nation from New England to Dahlonega, Georgia, and the Carolinas to California, all the way up the coast. Uh, so much mining history, which gave us these ghost towns and boom towns. Some have gone the way of the ghost town, and some are still here to this day. Like the small, uh, would you call Liberty a near ghost town, or is it fairly still active? I know it's one of the oldest still active gold mining
Yeah.
communities in the state.
It's pretty active. Liberty has a fair amount of residents and activity. I mean, there's a lot of controversy over what's a ghost town and what's not a ghost town. By simple definition, you could say a ghost town is, its reason for existence, its economic reason for existing. If it no longer exists, you could, use that definition, but you can almost apply that to anywhere, right?
Right.
Places evolve and change over time. But Liberty is still pretty active, and hugely historic, obviously, but it's an active area.
David Villa wants to know if you had any bad falls that you've had that you hobbled home with.
Wow, that's not
Boy,
a very fun question.
David, where are you coming from with these questions, buddy?
That's it. So I'm fortunate in my going on 15 years of exploring to have been fairly unscathed for most of those 15 years. I had a few years back, I was with a friend and we were hiking to a mine and it was wet and we were negotiating some tall brush and I slipped on, I don't know what it was, and I planted my hand to brace my fall and I broke a finger. And I finished the hike and finished the 3 mines that day with a broken finger. And it wasn't the most comfortable thing, but that was
But
probably
at
at that
least it
time.
wasn't a broken foot.
Correct.
Yeah.
That was the worst thing that I had happen to date. But last year, I was coming out of I was coming back from a mine, and there's this beautiful miners trail, like up in the, you go like way up, and any miners trail you can imagine that would just make your life easy. There was this 3-foot wide miners trail. It had a stone retaining wall on the edge of it, super nice. And I was stepping over some brush or a tree that was down. And I don't know what, I lost my footing. I went over the edge and went probably 25 feet down the side. And I think I dislocated a rib or two. But that was like the first time I actually was legitimately concerned about being injured doing this. So that was the first time that's happened. So
A personal friend of mine and YouTuber and prospector out of New York, Keith Doty. He mines a lot in Vermont, New Hampshire, which also has an interesting mining history. He wants to know if you have any cool things you found and brought home.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff, behind us is some of it's just stuff I've acquired, not in mines, but just collecting. A couple times, like there's this crucible here that actually came out of a mine in Okanagan that we had permission to remove. So most of the time, we don't bring things out for 2 reasons. One is we want to leave stuff in the mines for other people to see the history.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take it, then we've just made that mine that much less interesting. It's not really the other thing you run into, and I don't know if a lot of people know about it, but especially in national forests, is you have the Antiquities Act.
Right.
So you're not
supposed to take
exactly. So it's illegal to remove things. So it's just a rule we kind of abide by. It's tempting, you see stuff, but at the same time, if I go to a mine and say I knew something was there, somebody told me, hey, if you go to this mine, you're going to see this cool item, and I go and it's gone, it's pretty disappointing. Right. So we don't want to ruin the experience for the next person down the line. So we want to leave things right where they're at and
That
make sure other
that'd
people.
be like going to a cliff dwelling in the southwest and all the pottery's gone or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And most people, unfortunately, they don't, abide by some of the laws or rules or unwritten rules, whatever you want to call them. And things just have disappeared over the years. Like I said, we know groups that were exploring mines back in the 80s, that we knew what was there because we can look at their records and their accounts of what they saw. And you go there today, and a lot of that stuff's not there anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So
people are going, ooh, relic room stuff,
yeah,
man cave
yeah.
stuff.
Yep.
Now I'm sure you've been into, uh, in the coal mines. You said you found coal carts and stuff. Ever run across or ore carts and old picks and
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah, yeah. Ore cars in Washington are, especially the west side, are fairly rare. There's not a lot of mines that have them still in them. A lot of these mines, the mine to market road, that could access these sites, through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s into the 90s and some into the early 2000s, it could still be driven, with capable vehicles. So people
right.
could get a lot closer, to some of these mines then than you can today because these roads are all decommissioned now and they're completely blown out. They're a trail at best. So people could get to some of this stuff and haul it out a little easier. But I think in Western Washington, I want to say, one, two, three, maybe 4 or 5 ore cars, in all the time exploring that I've come across, and they're pretty remote mines, for them to still be there, because obviously if they were anywhere near accessible, they probably would have been taken out.
Mr. Lodak says, I'd put a plastic skeleton in the mine.
Yeah, I think somebody suggested that to us once too. We have to revisit that one maybe for a video or something.
Halloween special.
Right, right. I guess that would spook somebody, another explorer, like, oh my God. But, uh,
Yeah, on a recent trip that we did, in May, we went to a, very remote copper mine, kind of outside of the, index district, we'll say.
Mm.
And it was about I want to say it was 17 miles round trip, of which I'm going to say probably 14, 15 miles of it was on some semblance of an old road and trails that you could make out. And then a good portion of it was just completely brush bash, just going through woods and brush. And this mine had been sealed for about 20 years. It collapsed. The last people we knew that were in there was about 20 years ago. And somebody that we also knew, went up and they dug it open. And then they got a hold of me and said, "Hey, just FYI, we dug this mine open." And I had gone to this mine 8 years earlier, and we could not figure out how we were going to get it open. It was pretty, sloughed over. There was a lot of material, so we just kind of bagged it. So
mm-hmm.
we went back and, we were able to get into this mine. It was one of those, like, you look back and say, I don't know if I do that again, because it was pretty sketchy and getting into it.
Yeah.
But there were 2 ore cars in this mine, one steel and one wood. This mine dated to about 1894. I think the last record of production was 1899. So this ore car probably dated to the 1890s, with no doubt. It's the rarest ore car I've ever seen made of wood. I've never heard of one in Washington before. I've never seen a photo of one. So, that's a video we're going to be putting out here soon, and that mine exploration. So that was a pretty cool one to be able to see.
I'll have to keep my eyes open for that. It just amazes me how the old timers got the stuff into some of those places, um, like the mines in the Baker district and stuff, or even some others, even like oh, in the copper country in South. I always have a hard time with that county's name, but up the East Fork Lewis River, Scamona.
Mania.
Yes, Camino.
For the life of me, I've always had trouble with that county, pronouncing it.
Oh yeah.
It just amazes the gear they've hiked up, like
Mhm.
Hold in Mine. That's
Yeah.
Oh
way
yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had to follow Lake Chelan all the way
Yeah.
up to there and get stuff in there. That's like crazy. But I know they're still mining in that area to this day.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, one of the more recent kind of research and exploring tools that we've used is LiDAR.
Mm-hmm.
Parts of the state, not the whole state, but there's certain, areas that have been LiDAR mapped. So when we're doing research and looking at a mine, we actually can look at the LiDAR. We can find clear as day the old miners trail, how it switched back. And we can, something that you previously you just kind of had to hope you could just get your research coordinates just right. And you could find the miners trail and hit it and just, follow it. Well, with LiDAR now you can see it and pretty much map it out. It's pretty awesome to have that technology
That'd be such a great useful tool for uh the rainy side of the Cascades too, because the forest floor is like awful in some areas and
Mhm.
so much more lusher than over on the dry side of the Cascades.
Yeah,
Um,
it's pretty dense for sure.
so I could see there's a lot of prospectors that utilize LiDAR because, with we there's a saying in our community, if you want to find gold, go where it's been found before. And we dig into our research, I'm sure parallels to a degree because we check out records for what type of ores found in a given area and where a lot of us are particularly gold miners or prospectors, and so we search for places with a gold history and then open land and accessibility. And I love history. I liked history way before I even got into prospecting. So, but to me, it all goes hand in hand. Now, what tools and what type of research do you go prior going out, and how do you choose which ones to go to?
As far as choosing, at the very beginning, it was kind of like anything, right? It didn't matter what it was. It was just like, hey, we want to check out a mine. We want to, go see a cool historic place. So we weren't too selective early on. We just kind of you started with low hanging fruit, things that were easy to do the homework on and to get to, and we kind of evolved our process and our tolerance for harder to get to areas, right? And so tools, lots of DNR records. Probably the biggest tool that we use as far as research is the Drewster,
Yeah.
who's one of our exploring partners. Drew, he's a really good researcher.
Okay.
He collaborates with us a lot. So he's a guy that just knows how to pinpoint things from the records and just turn them into real GPS coordinates and just phenomenal at what he does. We've used the Northwest Underground exploration books, which was an exploring group that started out here in the 80s. They published, I think, 6 volumes of books. And they did all these mines back in the 80s and 90s, and they basically mapped out the history of the mine, everything that you could think of that goes along with that mine that they could find on it. So that was a really helpful tool early on. And from there, we just word of mouth and networking is a big way we do a lot of our research. People turn us on to things that maybe we just completely weren't aware of. So
there was a Mr. Lodax wondering, if you use the app Caltopo?
Caltopo.
I have not. I'm familiar, but I have not. I don't use that app, but I know what it
There's
is.
in the free version you could use the shaded relief and it works just like LiDAR.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. I haven't. That's one I haven't used.
It's a pretty good tool, and if
Usually
you're
use
interested in the program at all, a friend of ours, Matt, the prospecting geologist, has some pretty good videos on it, along with LiDAR and how to do it yourself and stuff.
interesting.
Awesome.
I can relate to that, Zachary. In my environmental conservation class at Skagit Valley College, I really enjoyed the orienteering part. Because you definitely know how to read your maps doing what you do. I think anyone who plays out prospectors and stuff should always have paper maps with them too, and not just trust your GPS. Do you rely all on your electronics, guys, or do you take a topo with you?
Um, Early on, I used topos quite a bit. Starting out doing this years ago.
Well, that was
Um,
years ago, so service was a lot spottier back then.
and just the technology in general, using, your standalone handheld GPSs, right? And I mean they're fairly accurate, but compared to what you can get on your smartphone today, right? It's a game changer. We still take like maps of mines. So if we have a map of the workings of a mine, we bring paper maps of that. So we can look at the workings and kind of understand, especially multi-level and more complex sites. So we bring paper on that. But really that's about it now as far as paper. We don't really use topos any longer as far as paper. We just use our devices.
Yeah, and with devices, you can download PDFs and then you have them with you as long as your charge stays strong. And with with those files, you don't need service anyway.
Exactly.
Uh, Gaia GPS is really handy. Shows geology, faults, mines, land
Yeah,
use,
that's what we
topographical
use
trails,
actually.
etc.
Yeah, we that's the app we use the most.
Yeah, I believe that shows property owners also, if I remember right. Isn't it like
On some
X
layers, I
Hunt?
think. Yeah.
X Hunt will show the properties too. Nikki, you out of here? Got to go, guys. Got to renew one of my mines. Oh, well, you better don't want that to drop. Nikki, hop on it, girl. Good luck with the opal mines and your family, love. Good seeing you. Nikki's a great gal. She's been on our show a couple of times. She must be loving opal mining. I guess there's some big bucks in it. I wouldn't know. Um, Now, how do you engage with local communities and or historians to gain deeper insights into the history of a site you want to explore?
So, we've done not so much lately, but in the past, we've worked with like Black Diamond Historical, and we've gone out to sites with that group and participated in some of their exploration and documenting of sites years ago.
Would you be working with Zachary then with that?
I don't know that if Zachary, I can't, if I don't recall if Zachary was around then or not. I apologize if he was. But mostly a few other local groups of note. Trying to think of some of the other ones. Like Index. In Index, we've there's the Bush House. There's the Index Museum.
Mhm.
That we've participated with some things with, but not a whole lot, honestly, of dealing with a lot of historical societies. And we're open to it, and we would share our information and our media
me?
gladly with them.
That cough just came out of nowhere. Now, that copper mine with that one smelter where you found the cabin and stuff in the stone smelter, by
Yeah,
any chance, was that in the Index District or the Galena District?
yeah, that was the Index District. Yeah,
I had a feeling. Had a feeling. I know there's a lot of garnets in that river. Last time I wanted to go up into that area, the road and Index washed out. Have they
yeah,
fixed it
Yeah.
yet?
yeah. The Index Galena Road. It just reopened. I think this past last year.
Yeah,
I
it was
believe.
last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wow. I don't want
yeah.
to tell you how long ago it was when I was last up there, but
I think that thing
they've
was
had
like
it
watching
closed for a long time then.
15 years or something like
Yeah, I was
that.
gonna say 15, 16
Yeah,
years.
you'd have to go all the way around the back way to Galena then.
Yeah, over Jack's Pass.
Yeah.
Now, have you two ever had to go around Dead Man's or Dead Horse Curve going into the Slate Creek district?
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, several times. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. That's a really intriguing area, I'll tell you. Unfortunately, like you said, it's all patented, mostly claims up there. We had the privilege several years ago of somebody that I can't remember their exact affiliation with the properties there, but they were staying at the New Light Mine bunkhouse, which is still fully intact. And they invited us up, and we stayed a couple, 2 or 3 nights. We camped up there, and they gave us the run of the place to be able to explore. And that was probably, I'd say that's a top 10 highlight in the exploring
Nice.
career. So that was a pretty cool area.
And at least that's getting into the rain shadow of the Cascades. So I'm sure things were a little more preserved over in the Slate Creek district than like, oh geez, trying to Silverton or Darrington or
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
all those. There's, geez, seems like everywhere you think of, there's a district of some sort. So,
Yeah, probably the biggest threat to the historic structures in the east side of the state, which were obviously, as you pointed out, way better preserved than the west side, has been the wildfires of late. There's been a lot of historic mine structures lost to wildfires in the last 5 to 10 years that were there We visited them. Some of them were on private property. They're one of a kind. We're talking full wooden mining head houses, right? Just incredible to see, and they all are gone now just due to wildfire, which is really unfortunate.
Have you run across any like old mining, logging camps?
Yeah,
Mhm.
we couple done a few logging camps. It hasn't been um, a big focal point of, but there's probably a lot more out there that we haven't seen than we have seen. There's a whole community that really focuses on former logging campsites, and I've had a couple of people reach out and say, "Hey, have you ever done this and that?" So that's another thing to look to in the future. Obviously, it's going to be mostly relics and tools and various things there. I mean, there's nothing left of the camp, but it's something to consider for the future to possibly look at some of those sites too.
Yeah, I ran across one prospecting. I want to say it was up on Howard Creek, which is a tributary to the South Fork Nooksack,
Mhm.
and straddling Skagit and Whatcom County line. It was probably in Whatcom County by the time I got to it. But I actually found a narrow gauge railroad grade, and
Oh wow.
uh, I think I was still on Crown Pacific logging land, and I know that's long sold. I don't know if Jenneke owns that land now, but I know it's about impossible to get in, especially with the motorized vehicle. You have to either mountain bike, hike, or horseback into it now. So, shoot, that'd be a day's journey all in itself to get to where I found it. But yeah, it was a narrow gauge railroad grade, and I saw evidence. There was a steam donkey up there, a shed, actually on carts, and it was overlooking a ravine. The trestle was
That's
broken
awesome.
down, but I I didn't have a camera or nothing either for us. It was awesome, and it's just out of the blue. Okay, here's a railroad, a trail became a railroad grade, and I know a lot of that area back in the day. Um, the first logging, if it wasn't done by oxen, and then it was done by train, and then eventually trucks, and how it is now. My friend Otis Ferris from Marble Mount, or not Marble Mount, Cedar Woolley, Washington. Explore anything up around Marble Mount. Marble
Not,
Mount would be the Cascade River area.
yeah, not so much. The northwest side, especially getting up north and mentioned Mount Baker. I mean, we've done a little bit up there, but not. That's probably one of the more untapped areas that we haven't explored as much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely need to get up there and check some more stuff out for sure.
Uh, Ever hike up Mount Rainier looking for mines?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mount
That's from
Rainier
David Villa.
is a lot of the mines in Mount Rainier were either blasted shut or they were gated, back gated, especially within the national park boundary.
Mhm.
Right.
There probably are some up there that are still open that are just fairly remote. I can say I've done one mine in the Mount Rainier National Park that was still open several years back. I'm sure the Park Service probably frowns on that. So, but not a lot of mines still open up there. A few, but not a lot.
Uh, Ohio Relic Hunter, my friend Bill, he's also from the Pacific Northwest. And thanks for the token for Mount Rainier, Bill. It's a Sasquatch token he picked up for me on from Mount Rainier.
Awesome. Yeah, there was quite a bit of mining up there for sure. It's just unfortunately not a lot left to see or explore.
Well, up around the Rainier area, I believe it's north of Randall, is it? Crystal Mountain area.
Yeah,
And
just
that used to be a very rich mining district where the ski slope actually
yeah.
in that area is. Ever explore anything in that area?
No, I know of some mines out there. One of them, I think there was that area's been expanding rapidly. There's a lot of development going on up there. And I think there's a mine that's actually it used to be kind of more remote, that's now kind of off a trail by some houses that when they develop the area. And there's others nearby that aren't nearly as accessible, but haven't done a lot out there in that area.
Now, what's been your favorite part of our wonderful state of Washington to just explore?
Probably I would say I would have to say Okanagan.
Yeah.
Is probably one of the more historic and as far as what's still left to see. It's probably the best in the state. There's still structures there, and a lot of mines. Stevens County, which is going just to the east a little further.
Right.
That'd be like a close second, just because of what you can still see, right? The west side, you have tunnels, you have mines, but you don't really have anything else other than artifacts. It's really cool when you go east and you can still go to a town and you can say this was this building, this was part of, it's still there, right?
Right.
I think that's what makes those areas really special.
I like the Okanagan area myself. There's still good gold there too, and I'm sure some silver too.
Yeah.
Zachary, some good mining across the pass near Bubbling Lake, uh, in the AX feeders, cater. Sorry, I should have paid more attention in reading in English. I'll have to check that out, Zachary. Um, so what's your plans for the near future? Summer's here. Don't have to worry about snow in the lower uh, in the lower land. I'm sure there's plenty of areas still with tons of it. Um, but like, what's your long-term goal for ghost towns and mines of Washington?
Um, I don't know that we have a long-term goal. I think it's just to continue, to obviously share and explore the history like we have, but we've also, especially expanding some of our social media horizons that getting into YouTube and whatnot is to look at, some of the sites we go to, the quality of the location. In the past, we were all mostly focused on, hey, how many sites can we visit in a year or a month? A lot of quantity, which not to say the quality wasn't there in visiting those sites, but as we try to do some additional YouTube videos, obviously the quality is what's going to matter. It matters to us, and to anybody that watches our stuff. So we've kind of tried to be more strategic about where we're going to visit, plan it out, pick some sites that we think people would really like to see and be intrigued by, and then spend more time at that location versus saying, hey, we're going to go to 3 places in a day. Let's just go
Right.
to one and do it really well, right? So that's kind of what we've been focused on, like for this year. As far as down the road, we just want to keep doing what we're doing. As long as people want to enjoy what we do and follow us on our platforms and watch our stuff. I mean, really, that's what it's all about for us, is just to share it. So we'll just keep doing what we're doing, but nothing beyond that, really.
Okay, Otis has one we usually throw into prospectors, but if you had, it's a good one, Otis. If no holds bar, you could go anywhere you wanted with, you know, choice is yours, where to go. Money was no object. And on your bucket list, major number one, if no holds barred, doesn't matter, national park, the moon, Washington, D.C., whatever. Uh, where would you want to explore?
That's tough.
Hmm. I've never really thought about that, to be honest. But I think if I had to answer that just on a timeline here that's reasonable, I would say a place I think I've always been intrigued by is Kennecott, Alaska. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think just that's a cool mine site. Um, I could pick a region, right? I mean, there's obviously some
Oh,
really
yeah.
huge, cool mines in Alaska. I mean, there's some stuff in Colorado. I think places that just have the most to offer in terms of stuff still being there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why Kennecott watched a lot of stuff on that, and it's one that probably would be on the top of the list.
Right on. Yeah, a lot of our prospectors say, Australia, go to Australia. I'm with you, Gold Hunter 77. David Villa says Utah Blind Frog Ranch.
I mean, we watch a lot of YouTube, some of the big channels and some of the stuff that's in California, Southern California, going into Nevada. I've done some stuff in Nevada, just on trips. Arizona. I mean, there's some just all those places just have so much to offer, right?
Have you
I could pick.
visited Cerro Gordo yet?
No, no, not yet.
No.
Yeah, haven't gone. Familiar, obviously, but no.
Yeah, a lot of mining history in Death Valley and Inyo
Yeah,
Valley and
Oh yeah.
yeah.
stuff like that. Tons of tons of it out there. Uh, Unfortunately, a small handful of people have made places that used to be accessible non-accessible, though.
Yeah, no, it's there's I mean, the places to visit and go and the opportunities are endless, obviously. I mean, just even in just what we do here in Washington, I mean, the amount of time and energy that goes into um, planning a trip, doing the time on the trip, trying to maintain your life outside of doing this, and then trying to have any social media presence like we do. It's amazing how much time it takes up, right? I mean, when we did Facebook beginning, or we started Facebook and did that stuff, it was pretty much at our leisure. We weren't really, it was like, hey, we'll post when we post, no big deal. And when we really tried to turn it up a notch, it eats up a lot of time. It's
Yeah.
amazing how much time investment goes into it.
I don't know, Mr. Lodak. Mr. Lodak's uh, was it asked if they own any metal detectors? I think their treasure is the history and just going for. They're not really relic hunting, I don't believe, are you? And I've noticed
No,
in your
I mean,
videos you've left a lot, if not all, behind all the time for, like you
yeah.
said, for others to enjoy and see the history.
Yeah, metal detecting, I mean, it's something I got intrigued by a while back and I was going to dabble in it. But again, when you're doing what we're doing and places you go, the rules, the laws, where you can and can't, it gets really
Right.
complicated. So in hauling that stuff to some of the places we go, I mean, you try to go as light as you can with the necessities. So the more gear you take, the more miserable the trek is. So we try to
Right.
limit that for sure. So
Packed light, packed specific. Picture taking relic hunters at heart. Pretty much,
yeah,
you
Oh
know.
yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
Hey, it's still a treasure, right, guys? Still
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
treasure.
I mean, the thrill, I mean, that's the thing is like, I used to like early on in my life, I hiked a lot and just hiked for scenic and
Mhm.
growing up and not that I mean, on the places we go and where we explore, we still get all of that rolled into what we do. But to this day, I tell Forrest, I say, I don't think I can imagine doing an 8 hour day, X number of mile hike if there isn't some rusty relic or a tunnel at the end of the rainbow.
Yep.
It just, I just, the way I hike and the way I view things, I've got to have that carrot, right, that I'm
Right,
chasing, or
right.
it just doesn't work for me. So, you know,
Now, Forrest, here's one for you. You're by looking at you, you're a little younger than Tim. Tim, I would assume you're around my age, probably. Um, how'd you two, you know, how'd you get into it?
So Tim is my he's my dad, he's my stepdad, been around since I was like 2.5, 3 years old.
Cool, cool.
And the summer trip that he got the hair to just go out and do something after doing a little bit of researching around, I was like, you know what, I'll go along. I was on my summer break and I liked hiking. I used to hike as a kid along with my parents. And I got the bug as well. We went out, saw these really cool foundations, and I mean, I would pick coal out of the walls sometimes to take it back in a backpack with me. It was just one of those things where it was so cool that I'm like, I can't quit. I can't stop.
That's cool. That's cool. And you get to have some quality time with the old man.
Oh, absolutely. Some of the best quality time.
yeah, he used to be, I had to drag him along and now he has to drag me along. So the roles
Yep.
reverse for sure. So.
Right on. That that's excellent. I've been in a rut too. I haven't been out. Oh, sorry, Otis. Thought you were talking to us and not the chat. Well, uh, you did we touch on this? We touched on expanding your reach, but we know just Washington alone's a chore. Will you get out of state this year?
It's always possible. I mean, we don't have a plan to get out of state this year per se. I mean, we definitely kind of mapped out some key sites that we wanted to hit within Washington this year that we felt would be, our, really, really cool places to share with some people. And some of the challenges we run into is there's certain areas that we get information that mines are potentially going to be gated or closed
Mhm.
in certain and whether this happens or not, we don't know for sure, but we just hear rumors. So we're trying to hit some spots that may not be available to explore in the not so distant future.
Right.
So we've kind of been more focused on getting to those key marquee sites, if you will, than getting out of state. But you never know. I mean, if we travel on a trip or we go on a vacation that isn't associated with what we're doing with our exploration, I can tell you it drives my wife crazy that no matter where, if we're going on a driving trip and we're driving from here to, let's say we're going to Astoria or Seaside, Oregon or somewhere else, I'm always looking for that side road or, that adventure that's not planned.
Right.
Everywhere I go. Every road has, an interest to me that when you get out in the backcountry, that I want to say there could be something down there. So, very possible we could get out of state.
Very good. Hi, Gail, and thanks for becoming a member last night, Gail. I appreciate it. Well, lastly, what advice would you give to someone who is interested in exploring mines mostly, because most people that like history are into exploring ghost towns, but let's add that too. Interested in exploring ghost towns and mines, but doesn't know where to begin.
I mean, if you're looking for mines, I think probably like Tim has said earlier, DNR reports are probably going to be your best friend for being able to figure out where mines were or where there at least was claims in the past. And as for ghost towns, I mean, that one I've pretty much just scoured Google. I don't know if Tim has any.
Yeah, I mean, on mines, I mean, first off, you have to be patient, right? I can't tell you I can tell you for a fact, starting out, there's numerous sites when I didn't have the experience, the knowledge, all the tools, that I'd go and say, okay, I think I know where this one's at. And we'd go out and we would miss it by 50 feet, right?
Yep.
We thought it was up here and it was down in a creek bed. You couldn't see it from your vantage point, and it took 2 or 3 tries to locate the mine, going back again and again. So you have to be patient. I think picking, but they give you a good indicator of where to start and looking for these sites. And it's just, and the biggest thing is just go out and enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
And don't get discouraged. The other thing that we talked about earlier is, know your limit, right? Know what if you don't know what you're getting into, you probably should take a step back. The first thing I think we all talked about at the very beginning of this is the stay out, stay alive thing, right?
Right.
A lot of people just don't realize that mines are dangerous. They do have inherent risk. We take on a lot of risk, even if we do everything right. We do our homework. We have, the PPE and gear that we think is going to help, but there's always a risk. So you have to just understand they're not to be taken lightly. They're not just a weekend theme park adventure. There's something you just really have to understand what you're approaching and approach it in the right way. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you definitely want to stay alive, and a lot of things in those mines that could end your life quickly.
Yeah,
Oh,
without a doubt.
Or very slowly and tortuously.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, you run into dynamite. I mean, we run into dynamite fairly frequently in some of these mines. I mean, it's over 100 years old dynamite, but it's still packed inside of the wall.
Yeah, that could be scary, because don't old dynamite sweat nitro?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I'm not a subject matter expert by any means on dynamite and mines, but a lot of I know some of the mines in the drier climates that, it's more well preserved. Yes, it's old, but still a lot of the stuff that we encounter around here has been saturated. It's been, in water and
soaked and
soaked,
probably
and it's pretty inert, right?
Yeah.
right.
Still, I wouldn't mess with it. I've seen people that have pulled parts of dynamite out of mines and made, short reels holding it, saying look what we found. And I'm just like, it amazes me. But
Yeah.
but yeah, if I was
I think I would hold up an empty dynamite box, an old one, empty one, and say, "Ooh, look what I found," or show
Yeah.
it, or a carbide tin or something. But playing with actual sticks, I don't know if my cojones are that big.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
mean, like I said, we know, a lot of the stuff's probably, it's pretty harmless, but still, what's the point of, taking any risk that you don't need to take, right?
Right,
So there's no
right.
need. So
Well,
do you run you out of topics, Ed? Is that,
I think so. I think so. I think so. But I do appreciate you two coming on, and I have to commend you on your stepfatherness and taking up that responsibility. I'm in the same club, and I give great respect to those who picked up the torch and mean it for a long run.
appreciate that. Thank you.
And
Same to you.
I I hope the best for you and your channel. Maybe one day you'll. I know how it is. We all start off sharing our adventures. Then we get into it more, and then the more we get into it, the more it costs us to get into it. There's camera upgrades, there's computer upgrades, there's programs, and the list goes on and on. There's travel, etc. And then you're like, well, okay, I'm to a point where I monetize. How can I uh, make money off of it without making it too much of a job and
Yep.
still keeping to the point where you love doing it?
Oh yeah.
Now, would you like to see this become maybe your full-time job?
Oh, I mean,
That would be the dream.
without a doubt. There's no way I could say no to that.
I know,
That'd be
loaded
great.
question.
Yeah, it'd be sure that'd be fun just to be able to completely just explore and just provide content. Absolutely. But again, the reality of it is it's just like I said earlier, let's just we keep in perspective to say, hey, we wanted to share stuff with people and hope people like it. And if it goes somewhere, it goes somewhere. If it didn't, hey, that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to keep doing it and just build on it, improve it, do what we can, and just have fun doing it. I think that's the right perspective.
Now everybody, like I said earlier when we first started, their other social medias, well, most of them are down in the description. Um, link to their websites down in the descriptions. I see some merch behind. How much are your hats?
It's a good question. We haven't got that far yet. Actually, we just, the funny thing is we were just, I just had some run of hats done, a few different logo styles, and we were kind of still working through which logo and style we're going to go with. So that is forthcoming still,
Okay.
to be determined.
So do I, Gold Hunter. That's why I brought it up. Let me know.
Yeah, no, for
Absolutely.
sure.
I'm kind of a hat freak. I I have
Well,
so many hats it drives my better half
well,
nuts.
send me your contact information. I'll get one to you.
Oh, Right on. I appreciate that. But um I was gonna offer to buy one, but I'll take it.
Hey, absolutely.
Gold Hunter, me too, because I'm bald. I don't have to worry about that problem yet, brother.
Yeah, I get it. I'm getting there.
Yeah, thankfully I still got mine.
Right now, I wish I didn't have mine. I tell you, I, I grow my hair for wigs for kids.
Oh,
Oh, nice.
awesome.
I guess I'm still young enough I can let it grow out, and I'm about long enough, and it's our heat index has been in the hundreds this week, and I'm sure hating this long hair. Oh,
Yeah,
I think it's about time go under the scissor and get a haircut and send it off. And I don't know if I'll do it again though. I did my haircut live, guys. Last time I cut my locks, what was that? 4 years ago. I don't think I could do it again, Forrest. I don't think I could do it again. Yeah, time to cut these golden locks, Brad. Time to cut them. Well, yeah, there is a silver lining to them now, David. Come on. But I am in my 60s. um, wow. And we pretty much filled the whole time slot, though, guys. And again, I very much appreciate both of you coming on, Tim, Forrest. It's been a pleasure. Um,
Glad to
I
do it.
I hope it was as much enjoyable for you guys as it was for me. And maybe someday in the future, in a year or two, I promised these guys a couple weeks ago I'd shoot for 10 years. So I have a few more years ahead of me doing this show. Um,
awesome.
and so maybe I could talk you into joining us again here in a year or two.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Anytime. Be glad, happy to do it.
Absolutely.
um, Michelle, my hair is too silver to donate to kids. One day, I'm sure we'll be the same. And thanks for becoming a new member. I appreciate it. Yes, it was a great show, Brad. And Brad Welsh from Australia, soon to be in the motherlode of California. Lucky devil, you. Um, it says, great show, people, and cool guests. So we will leave it at that. So take care and heavy pants. Have a good day at work, Brad. I know it's afternoon for you. Um, check them out, Gail. They have some really cool stuff. I enjoy their posts on Facebook too. Um, so hit them up on Facebook, follow them on Facebook. A lot of Washingtonian history. Um, I know you're in Georgia, but hey, Washington's a great state. I love her. I miss her. I have to be honest, it's hard sometimes watching stuff from back home because I end up being like Bill Marsh, Ohio relic hunter, and we get homesick. And so,
Oh, yeah. I would get a lot of that for sure. Hear that all the time.
yeah. But whenever I miss home, I like watching the videos from back home. Then I get homesick. It's such a vicious circle. Everybody, next week is Open Line Tuesday. I know 2 this month, but a very special reason. The 22nd of this month is Tuesday night Hangout Live's 7th year anniversary date, which makes the show on the 25th our 7th year anniversary special. So I would love it if I could get as many of you as I could fit in Zoom on to join me, and we could have a great talk, a step on fest, whatever. Just all of you. I love you very much. I appreciate you being part of the family here at Flash in Your Pan. And on that note, thanks again, gentlemen. Thank all of you out there. Until next time, may you always have a flash in your pan. And that's right, I'm gonna say it because I say it every show. I hope to meet you one day on the river. I know I told you it's different, huh? One day too. I hope to meet you on the river, and I hope to run into you too sometime when I'm back in the Ole and Lansing area visiting my children. All of you, have a great week, a fabulous hump day tomorrow, whatever. Have a great week. See you next week. But right now, we're out of here. Five, four, three, two, one.